today we are starting with the new series on corporate governance. Now, corporate governance actually refers to a system of rules, practices, and the process that direct and control a company, balancing the interest of all the stakeholders, management, as well as community. So, there are some key principles of the corporate governance which include accountability, transparency, fairness, responsibility, and the risk management. Good corporate governance fosters the trust with the investors, promote a long-term financial viability, and reduces the risk. The board of directors, they play a very crucial role in the corporate governance by setting some strategic aims, supervising the management, and reporting to the shareholders. So let's see about the principles of corporate governance. The principles of corporate governance include the treatment of stakeholders, accountability, diversity in the board, oversight by skilled directors, and the transparency in the various policies and the procedures which are governing the company. The corporate governance is actually very vital for the effective management, ethical behavior, stakeholder interest, and the long-term success of a company. So it also involves some regulatory compliance to ensure the responsible business practices and also prevent some negative outcomes like financial losses or scandals. There are few important definitions of corporate governance. One we will look for is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that is OECD. The OECD definition focuses on a broader set of stakeholders. It describes the corporate governance as a system by which the business corporations are directed and controlled. The corporate governance structure specifies the distribution of rights and responsibilities among the different participants in the corporation, such as board, managers, stakeholders, and spells out the rules and the procedures for making the decisions on the corporate affairs. Another definition given by Cadbury Report UK 1992. Now, one of the earliest and the most influential reports on the corporate governance, the Cadbury Report defined it as the system by which the companies are directed and controlled. So, these definitions emphasizes the importance and the guidance and the supervision in the corporate operations. Another definition given by Monks and Minot in 2001 in their book Corporate Governance, Robert A.G. Monks and Nell Winnow presents the corporate governance as the relationship among the various participants in determining the direction and the performance of the corporations. So this definition underlines the dynamic interactions between the board, management, shareholders, and other stakeholders. Now, according to Sir Adrian Cadbury in 2002, expanding on his earlier work, it offered a more nuanced definition in the corporate governance and the chairmanship. So, the definitions of the corporate governance, a personal view stating corporate governance is connected with holding the balance between economic and the social goals and between individuals and the communal goals. So, the governance framework is there to encourage the efficient use of resources and equally to require the accountability for the stewardship of these resources. And these definitions, they underscore the different facets of the corporate governance and form the emphasis on the investor protection and the balance of the power within the companies to the broader consideration of societal and the community goals. They reflect a very conscientious on the importance of effective governance, structures for the sustainability and the ethical operations of the corporations, while also highlighting the evolution of the governance concepts in response to a changing market conditions, the legal framework, and the societal expectations. Now, the characteristics of the corporate governance. Let's explore them. Now, there are various definitions of the corporate governance by the different authors, highlighting several key characteristics that are central to the understanding what the corporate governance entails. And these characteristics can be derived from the core aspects emphasized in the definition and include: the first is accountability. The corporate governance ensures that the company's managers and the board are accountable to the stakeholders and other shareholders for their actions and decisions. This involves the mechanism to monitor and evaluate the performance and ensuring that the actions taken are aligned with the stakeholders' interest. The second characteristics what we are talking about relating to the corporate governance is transparency. The transparency involves the clear and the timely disclosure of all the relevant information to the stakeholders. This ensures that the investors, employees and other stakeholders, they have the access to the information necessary to make informed decisions regarding their engagement with the company. The next is your fairness. The principles of fairness ensures that all the stakeholders are treated equitably and justly, and this includes representing the rights and the interest of the shareholders and the stakeholders, providing the equal access to the information and ensuring a very fair treatment in the decision-making process. The next characteristics is your responsibility. The corporate governance requires that the companies and their management act responsibly towards all the stakeholders, and this includes considering the ethical implications of their decisions, the environmental and the social impacts of their operations, and adhering to the laws and the regulations. Another important characteristics of the corporate governance is the risk management. Effective governance involves identifying, evaluating, and managing the potential risk that could affect the company. This characteristic underscores the importance of strategic oversight in safeguarding the company's assets and ensuring its long-term sustainability. Now, the next is your strategic oversight. The board of directors, they play a very critical role in providing the strategic direction and the oversight. This involves setting the company's vision, mission, and the long-term goals, as well as overseeing the management implementation of the strategies. Another important characteristics what we are talking about of the corporate governance is the balance of power. So, the proper corporate governance seeks to balance the power amongst the various parties within the company, including the board of directors, management, shareholders, and other stakeholders. Now, this helps prevent any single entity from having any disproportionate influence on the working of the company, and also ensuring that the company operates in the best interest of all the parties and all the stakeholders to have a better environment. The next is your ethical conduct. A commitment to the ethical conduct is the foundation of a good corporate governance. This means that operating with integrity, honesty, and the compliance with the legal and the ethical standards, fostering a culture of ethical behavior throughout the organization. The next is your efficiency. The corporate governance mechanism, they aim to ensure the efficient use of resources and maximize the value creation for the shareholders and other stakeholders. So this involves overseeing the management practices, financial control, and also the operational efficiencies. So we are discussing basically the characteristics of the corporate governance, and the next is your inclusiveness. Recognizing the importance of considering the needs and the rights of a broad range of stakeholders, including the employees, customers, suppliers, and the community, in addition to the shareholders and investors. So these characteristics reflect the complex and multifaceted nature of the corporate governance, emphasizing the need for the systems and the practices that support the ethical behavior, accountability, and sustainable growth. They serve as a guiding principles for companies striving to implement effective governance structures. So the importance of the corporate governance lies in its profound impact on the performance, integrity, and the sustainability of the organizations. Effective corporate governance practices are very crucial for the following reasons. Let us explore these reasons. The first is enhancing the corporate performance. Good corporate governance structures are associated with a better operational performance and efficiency. They help in setting some clear objectives, improving the management practices, and also ensuring that the business decisions align with the long-term goals of the company, leading to enhanced profitability and the growth. The next is your attracting investments. Now, investors are more likely to entrust their funds to the companies with the strong governance practices, as these are seen as less risky and more likely to generate the sustainable returns. The transparency, the accountability, and the fairness, they are the key factors that attract both domestic as well as international investors. The next is your preventing fraud and malpractices. Effective governance mechanisms, they act as a deterrent against the fraud, corruption, and other unethical practices within the organization. Now, basically by establishing a very clear code of conduct, the oversight structures, and the ethical standards, the companies can mitigate the risk of scandals and, of course, the legal issues. The next important point is protecting the interest of the stakeholders. The corporate governance ensures that the interest of all the stakeholders, they are actually taken care of and they are considered and protected. This fosters a very inclusive approach to the business operations when we enhance the reputation and the stakeholder loyalty. Another important point relating to the corporate governance importance is enhancing the corporate reputation and the trust. The companies are known for strong governance practices, often enjoy a better reputation, which can be significantly competitive. They have the competitive advantage. And the trust and the credibility with the stakeholders, they lead to a better business relationships, the customer loyalty, and the attractiveness as an employer. Another important aspect relating to importance of the corporate governance is your risk management. The effective governance framework, they really help in identifying and managing the risk that the organization faces, including the financial operations, the legal and reputational risk. This proactive approach to risk management supports the long-term sustainability and the resilience. The next is your regulatory compliance. The strong corporate governance ensures that the companies comply with the laws, regulations, and the standards, thereby avoiding the fine, penalties, and the legal battles. These issues are actually related with the regulatory compliance, and a strong corporate governance, they help in avoiding all these negative practices. It also encompasses an adherence to a non-binding code and principles, enhancing the company's legal and the ethical standing. The next is your promoting sustainability. By integrating the considerations of the social responsibility, and environmental impact into their governance structures, the companies can actually contribute to the sustainable development. And this is not only giving a benefit to the society at large, but it also aligns with the increasing emphasis on the environmental, social and the governance, that is ESG criteria by the investors and also the regulators. If the corporate governance practices are good and effective, they help in the decision-making quality also. So the effective governance practices improve the decision-making process at all levels of organization, ensuring that the decisions are made in a very informed, thoughtful and the strategic manner. And this includes allocating the resources efficiently, pursuing the opportunities that align with the company's strategic objectives, and avoiding the undue risk. It also helps in the crisis management and resilience. The companies with a solid corporate governance framework, they are better equipped to handle the crisis and the challenges, as they have a very clear procedure and responsibilities along with the trust and the cooperation of the stakeholders. And this resilience can be very critical, pivotal and crucial in navigating the economic downturns, the market volatility and the other unforeseen challenges. So we can say that the corporate governance is a foundational importance to its health and success of any organization, influencing its financial health, reputation, stakeholder relationship and the long-term sustainability. Now, let us move on to the theories of corporate governance. The corporate governance is the system of rules, practices and the process by which a company is directed and controlled. Now, there are several theories of the corporate governance that have been developed to provide a framework for understanding the various corporate governance mechanisms and how do they operate. So, we will be discussing the different theories like the agency theory, the stewardship theory, the stakeholder theory, resource dependency theory, institutional theory, transaction cost economics, the shareholder value theory, the political theory of corporate governance, the behavioral theory of corporate governance, and the contingency theory of corporate governance. So, in all, we will be discussing all these 10 theories of corporate governance. Although the list is not exhaustive, but we will dive into these 10 aspects deeply into the corporate governance theories. The first we will talk about is the agency theory. Let's see some key points. The first and the foremost is a principal-agent relationship. Now, this agency theory focuses on the relationship between the principal, that is the shareholders, and the agent, that is the management. Now, the next important key point relating to the agency theory is the conflict of interest. It recognizes that the conflict of interest may arise between the principal and the agent due to the differing goals and incentives. Of course, when you talk about the management and you talk about the other party, there are conflicting interests, that is the shareholder. So, this theory focuses on the conflicting interest which can be due to the differences in their goals as well as the incentives. Another key point relating to the agency theory is your information asymmetry. It emphasizes the asymmetry of information between the principal and the agent, which is leading to some potential moral hazards and adverse selection problems. Another is your governance mechanism. It advocates for the use of the governance mechanisms such as executive, compensation, board oversight and monitoring to align the interest of the principal and the agent. Now, there is a simplistic view which I would like to present here. The critics argue that the agency theory, it oversimplifies the complexities of the corporate governance by focusing too narrowly on the principal-agent relationship. Although in reality this is not so simple. This is the most complex relationship we are talking about. Another is the critique they have caught this point of assumption of self-interest. Some of the critics, they challenge the assumption that the individuals, they act solely of self-interest, neglecting the others' motivations such as social responsibilities or the ethical considerations, and it will going to give them a good mileage if they have a broader impact encompassing these two. Next is your limited scope. The critics argue that this particular theory significantly they have a limited scope as far as they are suggesting that the agency theory may not be adequately addressing the interest of all the stakeholders beyond the shareholders. So let's see the application part of the agency theory. The agency theory has influenced the design of executive compensation packages to align the interest of the managers with those of the shareholders through the performance-based incentives. Now, the next is your board structure. The companies apply agency theory by structuring the board of directors to provide an oversight and monitoring of the management actions to mitigate the agency conflicts. The next is your shareholder activism. The shareholder activism is often motivated by the agency theory principles, as the shareholders seeks to hold the management accountable and ensure their interests are aligned with the company's performance. So there is a substantial talking about the shareholder activism as far as the agency theory is concerned. Now, let us move on to the next theory of the stewardship aspects. There is a positive view of the managers. The stewardship theory takes a very positive view of the managers, assuming that they are motivated to act in the best interest of the company and its shareholders. The next is your trust and loyalty. It emphasizes that the importance of trust and loyalty between the managers and the shareholders, believing that the managers will make decisions that benefit the organization as a whole. The next is your long-term orientation. It focuses on the long-term value creation rather than short-term profit maximization, aligning with the interest of the shareholders and the other stakeholders. The decentralized decision making. Now, as far as the stewardship theory is concerned, it encourages the decentralized decision making and empowerment of the managers to act autonomously in the best interest of the organization. Now, the critics argue that the stewardship theory assumption of managers' inherent altruism and the loyalty may be overly optimistic and unrealistic in practice. And also there is a lack of accountability. Some of the critics, they contend that the theory emphasis on the trust and autonomy may lead to a lack of accountability and the oversight, potentially exposing the company to the risk. And there is a conflict with the agency theory. The stewardship theory contradicts the agency theory by downplaying the need for the strict governance mechanism and monitoring, potentially overlooking the agency conflicts that may arise. Thank you so much.